everyone. Hope you're having an amazing day. It's Code Karen. Welcome to r/Am I the A-hole, where we have an incredible story with comments. If you are new to this channel, a sub would be great. Let's jump to the story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my niece and her fiancé out of my house after I found them inside my deceased son's room? I'd like to start this off by telling everyone a little bit about my late son Connor, who I lost 5 months ago. He was only 24 years old, and he was very proud to be in the military. Losing him so suddenly was devastating. I left his bedroom pretty much untouched. Hanging on the walls are pictures of him, his posters, his artwork, and scattered everywhere are his books, sneakers, and such. Every time I enter the room, I feel a sense of relief and peace. I just love drinking my coffee in his room in the morning. I sit on his bed and look at his artwork. It just warms my heart, and I feel very close to him when I'm in his room. I'm so proud of him because he had no selfishness, never mistreated anyone, so kind and sweet. He was so forgiving and never held grudges. I started recently giving some of his art supplies to those who could use them, and it's hard, but I'm taking it slow. Just last week, my 23-year-old niece and her fiancé moved in with me because they are experiencing some financial struggles. They had very little money, and my sister asked me for a favor. Could I let them stay with me for a month, rent-free, until my niece's fiancé finds a job? I agreed. I didn't mind having someone to talk to because the house has been rather quiet. My one caveat to them was that my son's room is a clear boundary line, and they're not allowed to enter it or be in it for any reason. They are welcome to stay in the guest room. This room only has a couch, mattress, and a few tables, but they were grateful for the room, and they agreed that the mattress would be fine. Well, that lasted only a few days because my niece started complaining and asked me for a proper bed. I told them I had no plans to purchase a, quote, proper bed, and eventually they stopped complaining and dropping hints about how uncomfortable the mattress was. Yesterday, I went out very early to get groceries, and I got home about 8 a.m., unpacked the bags, made my coffee, and headed upstairs to Connor's room. I was very surprised to find the door locked. My heart started to beat a little faster, and that's when I realized that my niece and her fiancé were inside the room. I banged on the door, and my niece sheepishly answered and told me they spent the night in Connor's room because they couldn't endure sleeping on the floor any longer. I lost it when I saw her fiancé sleeping in Connor's bed. I couldn't control my anger and just went off on them. My niece was shocked by my reaction because I am known as the quiet one in the family. Instead of immediately apologizing, my niece told me I was overreacting and they would leave the room in an hour or so. I told them to get out of the room now and please leave my house. Pack your things and get out. My niece called me harsh, cruel, and unreasonable. She had the nerve to ask me whether my behavior toward them would be something Connor would expect from me. I told her to never bring up my deceased son again and insisted they just leave, and leave immediately. They did, about an hour later. Soon after, my family got wind of this. My sister promptly scolded me and said I shouldn't have kicked them out. Newsflash for all of you, the reason she can't take them is because her husband doesn't want his daughter's fiancé at his home. They must have gotten into some sort of big argument. My sister said I was the one in the wrong and I overreacted. She sister-shamed me for being unsupportive and pointed out that it wasn't like me to lose my temper and fly into a rage. I'd like to add this for clarity. The guest room only has a mattress, so they weren't directly sleeping on the floor, like they told everyone. They were okay with it at first, but they quickly started complaining. They also complained about other things as well. I should mention, my brother-in-law was adamant that his daughter's fiancé not be allowed in his house after something that happened between them. I don't know what that something is. My niece refused to move in without her fiancé. That's why I took both of them in. So, am I the a-hole because I kicked out my niece and her fiancé from my house when I found them sleeping in my deceased son's room? It's only been 5 months since his passing, and I'm taking it day by day, trying to work through my grief. Or is my niece correct to say that I overreacted, and kicking them out would not have been something that Connor would have done, and to honor his memory, I should not have overreacted and let them stay in his room? Let's head to the comments. Snoo68114 says, not the a-hole. It's very simple. You clearly outlined the terms and conditions under which they could live at your house rent-free. They didn't abide by those terms and conditions, so they deserve to lose their housing. Term number 1. They were told not to enter your son's room. They entered and deliberately locked the door for privacy. Beggars don't get to be choosers. If they didn't like sleeping on the floor, they could have bought a used bed frame with the money they saved by not paying rent. Or they could have talked to you about the sleeping situation before sleeping in your son's bed. As far as your sister is concerned, your sister can get over it. If her husband doesn't like your daughter's fiancé, that's on them. This doesn't mean you have to house them. You're not a Holiday Inn. Your sister doesn't get to sister shame you when she is perfectly capable of housing her own daughter and fiancé. She just refuses because her husband seems to set the rules. To Be Undone says, not the a-hole. You put clear boundaries in place. The other option for them was to sleep outside in the cold. Gee, too bad they had to sleep on the floor in your warm house. They're a-holes. I think the way you spoke to them was a bit much, but you're still grieving and raw. It's completely understandable. Maybe sometime soon you can calmly explain to them why seeing them sleeping in your deceased son's room affected you so much. I like that you remembered your son as being someone who never held grudges and was quick to forgive. I think it was crappy that your niece tried to manipulate you with his words. Northern LMT says, your niece and loser fiancé are insanely entitled. Given your sister's reaction, I have an idea where they might get it from. When I was in my 20s and broke, I slept on a folded blanket that acted as a mattress. I know your son likely had to settle for less while serving in the military. I don't think the soldiers are sleeping on luxurious feather beds. Honestly, I think it's for the best that they left because I sense that something would have happened that might have kept them from being able to move out in the promised time frame. You would then be stuck with them for a much longer time period. Not the a-hole. Good for you. Guy Man-Thing says, not the a-hole, because I see it as your house, your rules. But I really hope that you are seeking grief counseling. I understand that you don't want to change your son's room and everything, but it's not healthy to leave it as some sort of shrine. I know I'm going to catch some flack for this comment, but there was a perfectly good bed that you deemed off limits. Leaving your niece to sleep on the floor is a bit inconsiderate, but I believe it comes from an unhealed place in your heart. 5 months is still not a long time to come to terms with his parting. I don't believe you're ready to let your son go. Hopefully, one day, your pain will not be as great. Old Broad 54 says, I am so deeply sorry for the loss of your son Connor. You have every right to find peace of mind or comfort wherever you can. Your niece violated your trust and callously disregarded your feelings, and was so vicious to cause you more pain when she used your son's name. Please don't let anyone make you doubt your decisions. Your niece and fiancé are adults, and the choices they made landed them at your house and not their parents' house. They better start mending some relationships. Please keep following whatever path will give you some relief from the pain of losing your son. I am hugging you so very tight. Not the a-hole. Lovely Reaper 7779 says, oh my goodness. I cannot stress enough that you are not the a-hole. I lost my little girl 2 years ago. There are a few items of hers I kept, and I would absolutely freak out if someone took or ruined those items. Just thinking about it has me in tears. People don't understand that in grief, a room is your connection to his life. It probably holds so many memories for you. Grieving is a process that is as unique as each of us. Never let anyone push or guilt you for needing to keep things the way they are. I am deeply sorry, but you sound like a very strong woman. Stella 430 says, not the a-hole. Let's think about this for a second. If they had an apartment before, I assume they had furniture. Where's their bed? They could have used the bed, or at least the frame in the guest room. Second, why didn't your niece have a job? There was no mention that she was employed. If she had a job, they might not need a free place to stay. Third, they're getting a rent-free place to stay. Heat, running water, electricity, I'm assuming internet, maybe cable, and probably they're eating some of your food. The only thing you asked from them was not to go into your son's room. Seems like a pretty reasonable trade-off. And if her mother doesn't like it, she can take them in. It also sounds like the fiancé is a loser and a jerk. Flippin' Freddy says, all they had to do was stay out of one room. One room! And they broke that rule and violated your sacred place. You have every right to set whatever boundaries you want in your home. They had a mattress on the floor. This is still better than a park bench or their car. They could have bought a blow-up mattress or a bed frame, but no, they had to violate your request and sleep in your son's room. They showed you that they have no respect for you or your late son. Honestly, they sound like crappy people. It's interesting that your niece's family wouldn't let her fiancé stay with them for their own reasons, but they expect you to open your house to them because, quote, you are family. Unbelievable hypocrisy. Please make sure nothing of your son's, especially anything valuable, is missing. If so, call the police and file a report against them. Mackerel Sky says, I'm sorry about your son's passing. As a mother, I can't conceive of the grief you are experiencing after losing a child. The short answer to your question, not the a-hole. I will never understand people like your niece. It was such an easy request, especially given the generous help they're receiving. Don't go in this room. Seems simple, no? This happens all the time in fairy tales and mythology too. A benefactor offers something wonderful, with a single caveat that if ignored would void everything. Like don't eat from the tree in the middle, don't stray from the path on the way to grandma's, don't accept gifts from fairies. Seems like these make-believe stories have more to do with real life than we know. Greater Toad says, let me start off by saying that this was a huge and gross violation of your trust. You gave them one rule and they violated it. They now need to accept the consequences of their actions. It's hard enough losing your child, and then you have to deal with these ungrateful house guests. I can understand how your son's bedroom has become a sanctuary of sorts for you because it contains his memories, his personality, and most importantly, it contains his scent. As a parent who lost a child, his room was closed off for quite a while because I couldn't bear being in there and I didn't want his room changed because it was his room and he had placed things in a certain way for a reason. Take things one day at a time. As for your family, they have no right to be angry with you. They refuse to allow your niece and fiancé into their home. They are extremely callous because they have not experienced what you are experiencing right now. And more importantly, they don't seem to care about you or your wishes. C.S. Taylor 6 says, time for a recap. So, they're not sleeping on the floor like they are telling everyone. They're sleeping on a mattress on the floor. They broke into your son's room in order to sleep on a mattress with a bed frame. Brilliant. My gosh, I went years without having a bed frame. You are absolutely not the a-hole. However, this raises a lot of questions about the fiancé. What happened between them that was so bad that your sister and brother-in-law didn't want him staying at their house? Just from the little that you shared, it sounds like both your niece and her fiancé don't have an ounce of compassion or common sense between them. Two very self-entitled individuals. Your niece seems to be in a very toxic relationship. I say, stay out of this family drama and focus on your own healing. Dreamer Lady says, I can relate to this story, and if you don't mind, I'd like to add to it. My mom has a bottle of her mom's perfume. They don't make it anymore. I never met my grandmother, but occasionally, my mom will take the perfume bottle out to smell it. She said her mother was so beautiful and the scent makes her feel that she is in her mother's arms. So, with the perfume and pictures, my siblings and I get to connect to her in that way. Recently, my mom soaked a cotton ball with the perfume and sent that to me. I put it in a keepsake box. There's something really comforting about the scent because there's still a hint of the perfume even outside the box. I just have to walk over to it and there it is. So, I can really understand this mom who lost her child so suddenly and wanted, even if it was just for a short time, to wrap herself in his memories. Hey Code Karen community, I hope you enjoyed this story. Let me know if there was something said in one of the comments that you really liked. Or add your own comment.